Welcome to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. Today we're having another mum come on and share her incredible birth story. So welcoming Mattia, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm excited. I also had like a fast labor, and I think when you're like a first time mom, you hear so many stories about how long and like scary labor is, but then
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
actually stories like this as well, which I think
Yeah.
need to be heard more. So
Yes.
I'm keen to get into it.
Yeah. Perfect. When my contractions first started, I said to my partner, like, I think I'm having contractions, and it was middle of the night, and he was like Googling, and he's like, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I've read that first time moms can go through this for 2 days, and I was like, not the right thing to say, but I'm so glad it didn't last that long.
So I would love to like chat about like how you were feeling in the lead up to birth, like what was alive for you emotionally, like in those moments, like you just shared
Yeah.
that your partner sort of said this could go on for a few days.
Yeah, I was definitely anxious, but yeah, it's just like so. I had done like listened to all the podcasts and read all the things, but you just cannot prepare for what you're gonna actually go through. And I think that's the scariest thing too. Just like I don't. This is such an unknown.
Yeah, it's really surrendering to like the unknown of what's to come and what your story is going to be. And no matter how your like birth goes, it doesn't mean you've done anything right or wrong. It's just like it's actually just different for everyone. So,
Yeah,
what sort of birth were you like hoping for when you were doing your preparation?
yeah. So I was really hoping just for like as natural, low intervention as possible. I really wanted to have a water birth, and I didn't get into the midwifery group practice, and I was really devil about that because I thought that meant I couldn't have a water birth at all. But
Okay.
luckily, the hospital that I gave birth at, they had only two rooms with a pool. So I was like, if I don't get a pool, I don't know what I'm going to do because I was so just in my mind, like that's what I was going to have was a water birth.
Mm.
And I kind of like didn't prepare myself for what it would be if I didn't have that. So I was so lucky that I did get one with a pool and I was able to have that water birth. But yeah, from the get go, I was like, all I want is just a natural water birth. Part of me just couldn't, I think because I'm a Cancer too and I'm like a water sign, I think part of me was just like, I'm not going to be able to do this if I'm not in a body of water.
And I also think there's like a really big piece to that. Like if you get a little bit like woo woo, you've got the vision and it's almost like your baby's connecting with you and is like, this is actually how it's going to go. So of course you
Yeah.
did get one of the rooms with the birthing pool. I think that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really interesting part too, because it's like
Yeah.
that's how you saw your birth was going to be. And you were just like surrendering to that and kind of not giving yourself another option.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, talk me through your experience because when I was reading like your submission, you labored at home, and then when you got to the hospital, you were already 6 centimeters dilated. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, talk me through it.
So in my plan was that I wanted to birth for like at home for as long as possible. I just, yeah, felt like that'd be like the most comfortable thing just being at home. So my contractions started, I'd say they probably started at about 6 o'clock. And I was literally talking to my mum, and my mum was saying, we're going to go into labor tonight. And I was like, oh, they're feeling a bit crampy. So got home and I just said to my partner, maybe I should just open up the TENS machine, like, because I'd hired a TENS machine, but just check that it's all good to go. And didn't have a battery in it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we like raced down to Bunnings, got the battery. Thank God I did that. And by this stage, it was about 8 o'clock. I was like, yeah, my contractions are definitely getting like a bit more noticeable. Like I wasn't able to just like sort of do anything without even thinking about it. Like I was acknowledging that they were happening.
Mhm.
So I said to my partner, let's just put on a TV show, just kind of like chill out a bit. Because the hospital is so, they really push as well, like just take a Panadol and try and sleep it off.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, we watched a TV show that finished, and then I just took a Panadol and I'd like laid in bed. And by this stage, it was probably like 11:30, 12. And I was just like, just going to try and sleep it off. And they were sort of just getting a bit worse. My dog, I think he knew because he like came and he looked so concerned. He was just like, oh, like poor mom. My partner went to sleep and then they just got worse. And I was just like in so much pain in bed. And then it got to about 3 a.m. I woke my partner up. I said, can you please put the TENS machine on me?
Mhm.
But I think I'd just gone too far by that point anyway, that the TENS machine wasn't even really doing much.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of like first time mums in particular will forget, which I had the same experience. The TENS machine's beautiful, but you have to sort of use it before you think you need it.
I think it's in my head too. And I kind of went into it. I told myself if I gaslight myself and tell myself that it will get worse, then I kind of be able to push through it. So I was kind of doing that too. I was like, it's gonna get worse. Like this is just the early stages. The thing that made me realize like these are definitely contractions and not just like Braxton Hicks or whatever is because every position I laid in just made them almost worse than better. And then I remembered the like exercise ball and I was like, I'll just go jump on the exercise ball. And I sat down and I was like, whoa, no, that is not good. And I stood up and as soon as I stood up, my water broke. I was like, okay. And then I went and woke my partner up. I was like, my water just broke. And then I called the hospital. It was 6 o'clock and they said, my partner, I tell the story, my partner always interjects and he says, you were way too chill on the phone with birthing and assessment. Like I was just trying to act like I was, I was fine. I was able to talk through my contractions, but in reality, I was not fine and I wasn't able to. But I think because I'm a medical receptionist too, I just went into like professional mode and I was like, this is happening. And they told me to come in. They said, wait, come in at 7 o'clock. So, like in an hour's time. We got to the hospital car park and I had one in the car park. My mum and my partner walked me through the hospital while I was having contractions. This poor admin lady like came and helped me. And she's like, does she need a wheelchair? And my mum and partner like, no, she's being really stubborn. She won't get in the wheelchair. And then they were like, let me get you. I was like, I'm not getting in the wheelchair. Just let me walk. I think as well, like part of it was because it was so painful to sit down too.
Yeah.
I was
And
just
your
like, I'm just going to
body,
walk.
like your body definitely tells you what it desires in those stages of labor. So like if that's sitting down, it's actually putting that pressure on your pelvic floor. It's just not feeling good. You knew like your body's communicating with you like this isn't working for us and you were just like no, because like imagine if you actually just ignored that instinct you had and you sat, that could have actually really interfered with your progression.
So we finally got to the birthing and assessment, and I kept saying all through the hospital, in the car, everything. I just kept saying, they're just going to tell me to go home. I'm only going to be like 1 centimeters or 2 centimeters dilated. I
Mhm.
think that again, just like gaslighting myself. I was like, I'm only going to be 2 centimeters. Like this is pointless. Just even being at the hospital. They're just going to send me home. And then they laid me down. The first midwife that did like the dilation check, she wasn't great. She laid me down and she's like, you need to stop pushing. She got so mad at me for pushing. And I was like, I'm trying. And then she checked that out and I was 6 centimeters. So she's like, we need to get you down to the birthing suite straight away. They got me in a wheelchair. I was like, I don't want to get in a wheelchair, but they like made me get in the wheelchair. Then yeah, they wheeled me down to the birthing suite. Got in. I'd signed up for the student midwife program, so I had like a follow through student. So when my waters broke, we texted her and said, "Oh, just so you know, my waters broke." And she replied saying that she was going to go for a nap because she'd had like a night shift or something. And she's like, just call me if you need me to come in earlier. So when we got to the birthing suite, the midwife there was like, because I had in my birth plan that I had this student. She's like, oh, you've got a student. Is she on the way? And my partner said, oh, no, she's just having a nap. And she said she was going to call us like in an hour's time. And then the midwife was like, you need to call her and get her here right now. She cannot have a nap.
It sounds like you both, like as a couple, had quite a few moments of really not being validated in what was actually happening,
Yes.
especially it being a first time. You really hope that the staff working in such an environment have more of an understanding of the emotional state of both the mum and the dad, but also an understanding of the differences in how each body progresses and handles labor. And when you reflect on that, how does that actually make you feel as a first time mum that they didn't actually almost believe you in where you were?
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating because you hear so many stories as well of like people just having such quick labors. And I think just because you're a first time mom and they probably think that you don't really know what kind of pain you're going to be and they just think you are just like exaggerating how much pain you're actually in.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had an hour of pushing once you were fully
30 minutes.
30 minutes of pushing once you were
Yeah,
fully dilated. Is that right?
yeah,
How
yeah,
did
yeah.
how did that feel for you in comparison to you were getting that urge to push a little bit earlier on, and then you had that 30 minutes of pushing?
It's so crazy when you're actually going through the pushing when like baby's ready to come out because for me at least, I was like having a break from the contraction. So while I was having the contractions, I was just on the gas the whole time, like just really struggling to breathe through it. And then as soon as it was time to actually push, it was like my contractions just slowed down fully and I was able to just like actually have a rest. But it was such a difference from the contractions and that pain of like pushing I wasn't pushing like I think the first midwife thought I was pushing. I think it was just me like just tensing up so much.
Yeah, like it was just the way your body was responding to your contractions. And then once you entered your pushing phase, you recognized there was actually a vast difference in
Yeah,
like that, the way you were
yeah,
reacting. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And the whole and it kind of like set the like tone as well. The whole time I was in the bath, I just kept apologizing to my midwife, saying like, "I'm so sorry that I keep pushing," and she was like, "You're fine. Like it's fine. Just chill." But I think because the first midwife was so rude about it and kind of like yelling at me for it, then I'm such a people pleaser too. So then when I was like in that room with the like actual midwife, I was just like felt so bad that I was pushing, and she was like, "It's fine. Like stop apologizing."
And I think as well, that's like a really something I'd like to highlight is in our labor and our birthing experiences and then into postpartum, we have these like things that we've learned, these stories that we believe, and people pleasing is a massive one for a lot of women. And when you bring that into the birthing space, which a lot of women do, it can interfere a little bit because then you're sort of in your head more than in your body. And then
Yeah,
you're going, oh, wait, and you're losing that connection that you were having at home, right?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I'd love to move forward now to you had a positive experience overall, but you did say that your postpartum actually hit harder than the birth itself. Can you talk the listeners through what happened shortly after you
Yeah,
birthed, baby?
he came out so quickly, like 30 minutes pushing. I had physiological placenta birth.
Yeah.
I felt so good. And then when we were in like the birthing suite still for that sort of few hours before we went up to the postnatal ward, they tried to get him to latch and he like wasn't really interested, just kind of didn't really bother. Then when we got up to the postnatal ward, he just wasn't like he was latching perfectly, but he just wasn't sucking. He just like had no interest in drinking. I had expressum colostrum, so we had express colostrum to feed him. So that like the routine was just putting him on, trying to get him to suck, but he wasn't really interested, and then we'd just give him some of the colostrum to drink. And I feel like too because I was so like educated in what would happen during labor because I'd listened to all the podcasts and done all the things. I kind of, even though I didn't know what I was really going into, I knew in like situations what I wanted done if something, you know, say I had to have a cesarean or whatever. And now we were in this like in this stage where I don't know what I want. If he's not latching, I don't know what I'm meant to do. Like if he's not drinking, like I've got this express colostrum, but at what stage is that just like pointless because I'm like he's not doing what he needs to do. And they were just like, oh, he's just sleepy. He's just being a lazy little boy. And so I was like, okay, like surely we'll get there at some stage. And then he did, there was one feed where he did like latch on and start drinking. And no midwife was in the room. So my partner like started actually recording because he's like, they're not going to believe you. They're going to think you're just saying this because you want to go home. So that was the second day. He kind of had like one feed where he actually sucked, but I was still just giving him the colostrum.
Mhm.
And then the third day, that's like when the emotions and like all the hormones dropped. And because my partner wasn't staying in the hospital, I was like, there's no point in us both being sleep deprived. You go home. Like, I've got midwives here to help out. The third day in the morning, it was like 6 a.m. and I called him crying. I was like, you need to come in here. Like, I cannot do this on my own right now. Because it just felt so overwhelming. Like, I've got this little baby that doesn't want to eat, and I'm having to hand express colostrum. And the like, all I can hear in the hospital rooms is like people buzzing, and I'm just feeling like all these other people are buzzing, and I don't want to be a burden. So I'm just trying to do it all on my own. And it was just like, fuck, this is like a lot.
Like foreign environment, you're just trying to figure out who you are as a mother, you're having some
Yeah.
difficulties with feeding and with your baby, and it's a lot to be taking on.
Yeah. Yeah. So the third day, the midwife came in and she was doing like the check to send us home. She was like, I've just got to do like the routine, like ask you these questions. And then she did the jaundice, like the little skin checker thing. And she's like, oh, he doesn't look jaundiced. He'll be fine. And then it came back that his levels were like borderline quite high. So then she had to do a blood test and she's like, oh, it'll be fine. Like he doesn't actually look that jaundiced. I think it's just, you know, I'm just doing this as a routine kind of thing. And then Hamish could tell that I was like really upset that day. So he was actually telling me this hilarious story about my mum. And I'm laying in the bed and I started pissing my pants because I was laughing so hard. I was literally peeing myself and I'd gotten up to go to the toilet. And as I'd gotten up to go to the toilet, the midwife came in that done the test for the jaundice. And I'd laughed. I was laughing and I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm just pissing myself because I'm laughing so hard." And I was crying because I was pissing myself. And then she just turned around and said, "Oh, so the jaundice test came back and it's like his levels are high, so you're going to have to stay another night." And I went from like laughing, crying to like actually crying. And I was like, this is too much. Like,
The hormone
but
surges on like day three, like the baby blues, how everything's just
oh,
adjusting, your milk's coming in. It is huge. Like it takes a lot of women by surprise because you just think,
yeah,
I kind of feel a little bit manic right now.
yeah. Sorry, yes. So the midwife came in and she was like, yeah, you're going to have to stay another night. I went from like pissing myself laughing to just literally breaking down crying. That's when they said he'll need to go on phototherapy.
Mhm.
And I had never heard of that before. I didn't even know that was a thing because my brothers had jaundice, and I'd messaged someone. I messaged a mum that I know who's got a 1 year old and also a colleague because they kept like checking in and seeing how I was going. And I said, "Oh, he's jaundice. Like, we're gonna have to stay another night." And both of them were like, "Oh, so my baby had jaundice and my baby had jaundice, and we just had to put them in the sunlight." And
Mm.
that's like the same with my brother as well. Like, mum just had to pop him in front of the sun in the morning or whatever. So I thought, like, well, why can't we just go home? And I just put him in the sunlight. And then they were like, "Oh no, he needs phototherapy." I'm like, what the hell is that? And so they like, I think they could tell that I so badly just wanted to go home. So they had to like bring someone in to explain to me like what it was. And I think they did that to like basically try and make me want to stay in hospital. And I wasn't ever going to go home if he needed something. Like, there's no way I would have like been like, no, I'm just going to go home and not give him the treatment that he needs. But I think that's kind of like, that's how I felt. Like they'd gotten someone to come kind of just convince me to stay in the hospital.
That convincing energy.
Yes.
It's really
Yeah. And it was
interesting
like,
to like how you've highlighted you did so much preparation for the labor and the birth itself, but then a lot of the time we go into postpartum quite blindsided without knowing what it is, like what it looks like with feeding difficulties or jaundice or complications with the
yeah,
baby or the placenta or anything like that. So I feel like that's
yeah,
a really like important part of your story is like
yeah,
really highlighting that for new mums that sometimes it's not just the birth and the labor that you need to, well, that it's good to do some like preparation for.
yeah, 100%. Especially when you have like a low risk pregnancy and you
Yeah.
don't think anything's going to be wrong with your baby. And then all of a sudden it's like there's something wrong with your baby. It's
Yeah.
like, well, like, I didn't know that there was going to be something wrong with my baby. What do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
he's meant to be healthy and perfect and okay. And he's
Yeah.
not. Like, we had to do 2 nights of the phototherapy, and that was really like difficult because you do like, you've just got this motherly instinct to hold your baby. And when they're on the phototherapy, you can't hold them, they have to be on the mat. So that was like really tough. We couldn't even really like hold him to settle him or anything if he cried. The only time I could take him off was to feed him. But then again, he wasn't really eating anyway. Like, I was really just expressing.
Mm.
So that was like the real hard thing too, was just to like listen to my baby crying and not be able to comfort him when he's like so fresh. Like, he's like so used to the womb, and you're telling me I can't like give him a cuddle
That's huge. That's like really, really
and
hard on a mum.
And
Yeah.
then when we got home too, like, we had him home for 2 days, and then the midwife came and did the blood test again, and we got a call that we had to go back into hospital into the neonatal unit. So that
Mhm.
was really hard too. Like, we were like, even when I got just finally got home, I didn't even get to really experience that like bliss of being home because it was cut so short.
What are you most proud of about yourself?
I think probably just getting through it and like kind of, I feel like all the midwives and all the nurses that we saw kept reiterating to me that it was like not my fault. But I never felt like it was my fault that he had jaundice.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of just kept saying like, "There's nothing that you did wrong," blah blah blah. And I never even really felt that in that moment. Like, this is something that I've done wrong.
Mm.
The only time I really felt like I was doing something wrong was when he wasn't really like feeding properly.
Yeah.
But but then like everyone kept saying like, you're doing it all right. So I'm like in my head, well, I am doing it right. So what? Like, obviously there's just something else not connecting. But I think, yeah, I just never really. blamed myself for him like being having the jaundice.
Hearing your story and like everything you've touched on, I think that a huge thing is your resilience through all of the changes and like the unsteadiness, the lack of belief in you as a first time mum and everything moving at such a fast pace, you still maintained that connection to your intuition and stayed very resilient through all of that. So I think that's like
Yeah,
just a huge piece as well around like your journey in what you've
yeah,
shared. What would
yeah.
you wish for every first time mum to know before birth and those early postpartum days now that you've had your experience?
I think just that you'll get through it. I had like all those fears, but you kind of do just like get through it. Like, yeah, you just soldier on and make it work no matter what.
Yeah, it's one day at a time. Right now, you're breastfeeding him beautifully while recording a podcast. So it all works out in the end, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the
That's
podcast. That was
okay.
so
Thank
great
you.
to like listen to your story and hear how, you did all the prep and like you had the beautiful birth and the labor. And although postpartum early days were tough, things are looking really great now. And just that message that you really shared, the underlying message of just resilience and having that trust within yourself is huge.
Yeah,
So thank you so
yeah.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for listening to another guest episode on With Love Mama, the podcast. If you would love to share your own conception, birth, or postpartum journey on our podcast, I'd be absolutely honored to hear from you. There's a link below in the show notes, and your story could be medicine for another mother that is listening. Until next time, honor your body, trust in your wisdom, and remember, you were, in fact, made for this. Love you.